Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this installment of our Lattes and Learning series. I'm Amy McCoy. I'm our head of marketing over here at Ongoing Operations. And today's topic is going to be remote collaboration in a time of pandemic. And Hugh Smallwood, our CTO of Ongoing Operations, is going to be leading this live webinar discussing Teams, its functionalities, security concerns, best practices, tips and tricks, etc., along with Brandon Friedman, who is one of our senior VCIOs. So you'll go ahead and before I kick this over, see a quick poll on your screen on who's currently using Teams. If you could just go ahead and answer that, that would be wonderful. And with that, I'll go ahead and kick it over to Brandon and Hugh to get started. And Brandon, I'll say that with the results trickling in here, it looks like we're seeing about 45% of folks are using just Teams, about 16% are using Teams with Azure Exchange, and about 42% are not using Teams.
Great, thanks, Amy, and thanks everybody for joining us today. We're looking forward to talking a little bit about Teams and definitely how this tool can be really highly leveraged and used during the current pandemic scenario that we're all dealing with right now. So let's jump in here. Basically, the use of video chat apps, virtual collaboration tools like Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting have all seen a major uptick as many people are now working from home and having in-person visits have gone digital. So it's really become a major tool in our life, especially during pandemic. However, we at OGO expect that this will carry over past that, and we'll start to see a much higher use of these tools after the pandemic time period is ended. So we're going to keep moving, but you can see from this chart here how the use of in each of these countries, the use of these tools has really increased in the last month or so, since really the beginning of March. Okay. So let's talk about Teams across space and devices. So one of the really neat things about Teams is it spans across your devices. So if you're on your computer and you decide to you need to get up and walk to the other end of your house or something, you can pick the same meeting up on your phone or an iPad or move it to your laptop. So there's a lot of flexibility in the way that you can use your devices with regards to the Teams app.
Yeah, and at Ongoing Operations, we started off with the original Microsoft Lync platform, then moved over to Skype for Business, and finally recently have adopted Teams here. And it's been interesting to see the kind of the roadmap of how all that works. And it started primarily as just a chat tool, and it's really broadened out and integrated now into pretty much all of our collaboration platforms with screen sharing, presenting whiteboards, things like that. And to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, there is a great platform called Live Meetings through Teams that does produce a similar type of functionality that we're using here. With GoToMeeting, we just find GoToMeeting much easier from a kind of audience management perspective. So reaching out and scheduling and things like that, it takes third-party tools to convert the Teams live meeting function to perform that. We do we have tested that and used it in the presentation process in live meeting. From a technology perspective, works very well. It's the kind of bolt-on of audience management that it really has not caught up with. But all right, Brandon, if you want to go on next here.
Okay, so obviously lots of benefits of Teams, and Hugh mentioned a few of them during the last slide. But one of the really great benefits is it has a very intuitive interface. So many of your users probably have used some type of instant messaging tool in the past. If you have any experience with an instant messaging tool, you're going to have a very, it's going to be very intuitive for you to use this app, and it's not going to take a lot of major learning curve to begin using it and be efficient with it quickly. There's also a very easy to use file sharing system. So it integrates with your other Microsoft applications and allows you to move files between them. It's also excellent opportunities for collaboration. So with a Teams video chat, you can have up to 250 people on it. So most organizations, especially in the credit union industry, that's going to cover the majority of credit unions. You can also do live presentations like Hugh was just mentioning with up to 10,000 people.
And they are expanding. I think I want to say it's later, even it could be as early as the end of the month. They are expanding. Right now, your video view gets you 4 people, and they're expanding that so it's more competitive with the large video view that you get from a Zoom or some of the other products.
Yeah, and then one of the other nice features is your meetings also span across. So you can access your meetings either through your Outlook or through your Teams app, and it's very easy to enter your meetings. There's a calendar feature within the Teams app that shows your entire Outlook calendar there as well. So it's very easy to access your meetings. Okay. So obviously security has been one of the major questions around not just Teams, but Office 365. Teams has definitely, I mean, they're looking to really participate in this market where they understand that there are, auditors involved, and there's, you have to follow specific guidelines. So they've created security tools that allow them to meet those standards. And one of those ways is by adding 2-factor authentication, single sign-on through Active Directory, and encrypted data in transit and at rest. Files are also stored in SharePoint and backed by SharePoint encryption. And all the notes in OneNote are backed by OneNote encryption. OneNote data is stored in the SharePoint site.
So, and the great thing about that is that the advanced threat protection tools that you can use integrate with that. And again, so to get back to what you were saying there with the, you do get with Teams the access to a fairly advanced administrative portal. In that portal, you can create policies, so you have a lot of control over when and how your users are messaging each other. What platforms are allowed to use, whether or not you can federate and have people from outside your organization collaborate with you through Teams. So all of those policies are configurable in the Office 365 admin portal.
And on that note, Hugh, just before we go on, we had a question come in about how do you handle security surrounding the ease of employees now able to access files from personal devices that we may not even know about?
So let's jump to the next slide, because I think I jumped the gun a little bit there and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the next slide actually covers the advanced threat protection.
Microsoft's security platform, they across Exchange and OneNote and different parts of Azure and SharePoint, they leverage what they call this advanced threat protection, or ATP. And ATP allows you to create things like DLP policies and access policies that will limit that functionality. So if you want to be able to say, I can share some files externally, I can't share some files externally, I want to see not just the traditional, scanning files for viruses and things like that, but also how users are interacting with files. All of that is managed through their ATP policies. And so you can now, it is certainly not the same level of control as you would get from a domain environment where you can physically restrict where people can access it from. Obviously, you've now opened it up so that people are accessing content from other locations where they have an internet connection. So it's usually a combination. Best practice to be a combination of a strong security of the endpoint married with these ATP rules allowing to really protect your information.
And along with that, we had another question come in regarding those rules. Are the rules available from the base Azure teams, or do you need a higher level to set up those rules, et cetera?
You do need a higher level. So the ATP are add-ons to your Office licensing. And again, the files that are used in Teams, Office 365 leverages SharePoint for pretty much all of its file storage. So all of the files that are you're collaborating here ultimately are stored in some sort of SharePoint repository. So your ATP rules should be able to control your access there. So I think would love to get into a deeper conversation about that and understand specifically what kind of collaboration control you're trying to put, whoever that is trying to put into place. But from an approach perspective, building those ATP policies is going to be the way that you're going to control that. And it does require additional licensing.
Awesome, thanks, Stu. Yeah, one quick thing I wanted to add to that is, there's many bells and whistles and different licenses you can add within the Office 365 program from Microsoft. Here at OVO, we spend a lot of time researching the different tools and understanding which set of tools really are the effective ones that credit unions need. We'd be happy to speak with anybody who's interested in learning about which tools that we're using and selecting and how we came to decide on why those are necessary and why those fit the credit union industry really well. Okay, moving on to some tips and tricks. So we put together a list of 5 tips and tricks, things that we use a lot here at OVO. And obviously, everybody who uses Teams can take advantage of these different types of tips and tricks. So some of the nice feature functionality related to Teams, in group chats, you can name your group chat, which is actually seems kind of simple, but it's a really nice feature because it's an easy way to look down your list of open conversations and be able to say, oh, this is the one that was about this client purchasing something new, or this somebody has an issue with this and we're all working on it as a team. We can name the issue and easily scroll down our list and know exactly what we're looking at. So it tends to add a lot of efficiency. And you can also pin the chats that you're using most frequently, so they sit at the top of your chats, and you keep those ones at the top so that they don't, because what will happen is if somebody doesn't respond to a chat for a few days, it's going to move down the list as your newer chats come to the top. And then, as I said before, in one of the previous slides, you can share files and also make calls right from your group chat. So if you're chatting with a group of 5 or 6 people who are all working on a similar project, and you need to open a conversation, a verbal or video conversation with that group of people, you can easily hit one button and it will call all of them at the same time. And then you can also, as you add more users to a specific chat, a group chat, you can decide how much of the chat history they're able to see. So maybe you don't want to share, the entire history with them. You just want them to come in and be able to start fresh, or maybe you want to just share the previous 24 hours with them. You can just share that. So there's some really nice feature about how you leverage your team and create group chats. Okay, so let's keep going here. So a second is the ability to connect to external apps. So Microsoft Teams has excellent communication tools, but that doesn't mean you have to say goodbye to other tools that your organization is already standardized on. So for example, if one of your team regularly uses Zoom or WebEx for meetings, you can connect those apps directly to the Teams app and then switch to that service as needed.
And following that security statement as well too, by default, I believe things like sharing through Citrix, Dropbox, Google Drive, things like that are natively turned on. So getting into your Teams admin center and making sure that your general policies align with the policies that are turned on in there is something that everybody should take a look at.
Okay, trick number 3, team channels. Dedicated sections within a team to keep conversation organized by specific topics, projects, disciplines. So within, you can create teams within the application. So if you have a special team that always handles a certain aspect of your organization, maybe the lending department or whatever, you can create a team that's just for them. And then within that team, you can create more granular channels. So some nice features that really help you stay organized. And one thing I know from using a lot of different chat applications is your conversations can get lost. So Teams has really taken a major step forward and put a lot of effort into making sure that people are able to keep their chats and their different organizational conversations really clean and easy to find and access.
And so channels are I can go back there for a second. Yeah, channels are definitely. I haven't seen a lot of people leveraging channels. Channels are a great tool. Channels are more like a threaded conversation. So someone brings up a topic in a channel, and you can consolidate those conversations underneath that specific topic. And so visually, you would see it like a threaded discussion in there. Which is great, and people can control notifications and can and pins like Brendan spoke about earlier. So the things that are important to them, they can stay on top of. Another neat trick with channels is that you can email enable them. So if you have an external, you can publish an external address in a way that if you wanted kind of a ticket or a topic to come in from someone else and then have a group react to that can all be done through channels.
All right, let's move on to our 4th tip and trick. So see coworkers present. So if any of you ever used the Skype for Business application before Teams, that was the predecessor. They also had this tool. So when we moved over to Teams, I was really happy to see that they included it, because it's a great way to be able to tell what everybody's doing, who you should be, who you're able to bug and who you're not when you're using the Teams app. You can tell who's in a phone call, who's presenting. So you don't want to bug somebody who's presenting. You can also tell when people are away and be able to put status message that they're maybe they're on PTO or something like that. And what's nice is if you do create a Teams chat, or you have a team that you're already working with, and you go to send a message to them, if one of the coworkers who are in that team has an out of office message up within Outlook, that's another way to integrate, and it will put a message at the bottom, their out of office message, so that responds for the user who's not available to respond, which is a really nice addition to this application.
Yeah, and if you're fully on Office 365, it's interesting side. Brandon, Microsoft calls these jelly beans. So these jelly beans will be consistent across, if you're in SharePoint, if you're in Outlook, etc.
Okay, and then the last tip and trick we wanted to show was there's some really neat user analytics that you can take a look at. We actually did a little internal review a week ago to kind of see how all of our users are accessing and using the Teams application. And if you look at this chart, you can see kind of the dips in productivity. Those are your weekends. So you've got the 5 days in between, and then a weekend, and then 5 days in between, then a weekend. So you can actually go through user by user and see who your biggest chat users are, who are your biggest screen sharers and presenters, and who spends the most time on the phone, and compare people within departments, and do a lot of different types of analytical review using the neat features that Teams provides to us.
Yep, so you can export this to a spreadsheet and model it. One interesting thing I've seen is that you provide managers information about their teams in this whole kind of work from home environment that we're having now. So if they feel like people are struggling with engagement there, see some of the people that are not leveraging the tool very well, and reach out to them and ask them what some of the barriers are for engagement there. So that's been a valuable tool to see, not necessarily productivity, but adoption.
Absolutely. Okay, so that is our presentation for Teams. Hopefully we have some questions out there we'd love to answer for you. And if anyone has questions about the Teams app specifically, how Ongoing Operations leverages the Team app, or anything else, we'd be happy to take your questions.
Yeah, please go ahead and type those in as they come up. And as you're typing, we have a couple in the queue, and we'll go ahead and answer those. So the first one we have, guys, is can Teams combined with other Office 365 tools replace Smartsheet in terms of sharing documents, storing documents, and tracking projects?
I'm not super familiar with Smartsheet, but absolutely, document collaboration with Teams is really very easy. It does leverage and integrate the Office online tools. So if in a Teams channel you share a file, you can basically collaborate on that real time. We oftentimes will pull up a spreadsheet when we're modeling something, and any of you who've used Office 365, the online versions of Excel, it'll show a cursor where Brandon's operating in the spreadsheet, a cursor where I'm operating in the spreadsheet, and we can both live enter data and see that real time. So it's a function that if you ever worked on the Google Drive or Google Docs, that Google was probably on the forefront there, but it works very, very well in Teams.
Great, thanks, Hugh. So our next one here is, do you use a separate Teams management software, or are you just using the native PowerShell Azure management tools?
We do not leverage any third-party tools for management administration. Luckily, the only times we've ever had to really dip into PowerShell has been for bulk updates or for managing some of the voice integrations. So we haven't really touched on voice. I'm happy to answer any questions about that specifically. We leverage an integration to a third-party phone switch, and we've also deployed it with the local phone switch solution from Microsoft as well too.
Great, and we've got one more here. Can you get into more, a couple more, can you get into more how we can leverage for an annual meeting type setting, a large group, as well as what functionality exists for a meeting like that, similar to what we're doing now with GoToWebinar?
So there's two things. We touched on that Microsoft Live platform. That is or Teams Live platform. That is the closest thing to a GoToWebinar, but it is very much geared towards presentation. The biggest kind of, I guess when we tested it, the biggest thing that was a difference was that it incorporates a 20-second delay. So it is meant for presentation style. It is not meant necessarily for collaboration. So if you're having a board meeting, then probably you're looking for some more collaboration and less presentation, and you would probably want to leverage the native calendar meeting process. If you're doing a presentation where you're not expecting to a really large audience, where you're not expecting anything more than raise your hand question style responses, the Teams Live meetings are probably the best direction to go. There are a lot of settings in Teams that if you are hosting a board meeting, you can have people in presenters as guests. You can set up a lobby all of those things are controlled through that admin portal. And just, if no one's been in there, it's admin.teams.microsoft.com. That's where you can create policies for those types of functionalities.
Wonderful. I think we've answered all the questions that we had come in as of now. If there's any other last minute ones, please go ahead and type those in. If you happen to come up with any questions after the webinar, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@ongoingoperations.com. Be happy to try to answer, anything on Teams or any other topics you want to discuss. And also, if anyone is looking for a copy of this PowerPoint, a PDF version of it is in the handout section on your navigation bar, so you should be able to download it there as well. I know we had a couple people asking for that. And I think we're not seeing any other questions. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up, unless Hugh, Brandon, any concluding final thoughts?
Nope. I encourage anybody who wants some more information to please reach out. We're happy to jump on, do a screen share, show you some things in our admin portal or in our Teams environment.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yep. And everybody for joining us for the webinar. We appreciate your presence here, and we're happy we were able to talk to you a little bit about Teams today.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. We look forward to seeing you at our next Lattes and Learnings.